Now let's talk about e-fuels. Now e-fuels is an alternative to the petrol and diesel we get from refined oil that's from the ground. And Porsche seems to be really focused on making e-fuels a reality. Now, not a reality, but something common. Now, what is Porsche's e-fuel? Now, basically, e-fuel is used by separating hydrogen from oxygen in water through a process. So we need water, and then the carbon dioxide from the air is taken, and then that's separated. And I don't know exactly what order this happens, but apparently the carbon's taken and the hydrogen is taken, and they mix it together, and they basically create a solution that's the same as petrol and diesel, because petrol and diesel have the same particles. Petrol and diesel have hydrogen, are made of hydrogen and carbon, and this fuel will also is also made using hydrogen and carbon. So basically, there's no reason why this wouldn't work in a petrol or diesel car. I mean, it's the same thing, so same combustion and all. Now, how this is gonna help save petrol and gasoline cars? Well, that's where the problem is. Now, the only way for this to be actual viable solution is to make sure that this thing isn't putting out any extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Why? Because when this stuff, the new e-fuel that Porsche makes, burns in a car, it makes the same amount of carbon dioxide as a regular gasoline car, so there's no difference there. Now, the one difference that they could make is the fact that when the fuel is produced, they're actually taking carbon dioxide from the air. So basically, they're taking carbon dioxide out of the air and then putting it into the car, and then it's going out the car. So technically, it's not increasing or decreasing. It's stable. So it's almost carbon neutral in that sense. And that's the goal. I mean, technically, that could work. I mean, if all the fuel was made using this, then technically, even though the carbon dioxide levels won't go down, it won't go up either. And as we know, when it goes up, it gets worse. The climate gets worse. The ozone gets worse. So this will actually keep things stable at least. Now that's interesting. But the problem is, in order to make this sustainable without burning any fuel, it's using wind power, solar energy. It's using windmills. And I think it's just using windmills. I don't know if it's using solar energy. But yeah, it's using wind power to power the factories that produce this solution. And that way it's carbon neutral. Because otherwise you had to use you had to use oil to run the machines, and that would burn a lot of fuel and create CO2 again. So it would be pointless in that case. But the problem is, it's not really something that everyone can do, because you need a lot of wind energy, and what are you going to do in places where there is just isn't much wind energy? I mean, how are you going to stop it? How are you going to create it? And that's a big issue. Now, right now, this is being done in Chile. Porsche is making the e-fuel, and I'm guessing there's probably a lot of wind energy available there. So in Chile, it's not an issue, and there's also the other issue of transportation. Now, even this fuel is created, it has to be transported everywhere, and you're transporting using ships generally, and ships run on oil as well, so that's another problem. And almost ships and trucks, they're all run on oil, so yeah. Technically, there are some issues like that, but locally, it's not that big of an issue. So if there's a plant everywhere, technically this wouldn't be much of an issue, but the fact that it's using wind energy, that might not be viable in all places. And in order for this thing to be successful, it has to be made everywhere. There has to be plants everywhere making continuously, and wind energy is just not the solution for that, and that's the big downside. So will this become a global trend and everyone starts using e-fuels and replace EVs and hybrids? I don't think so. Not with the way this technology is right now. Now, in the future, could they find a way to produce this energy without wind energy or some other source? Maybe nuclear, but I don't think that's going to happen either, because you're going to need a lot of nuclear plants, and I don't think that would be safe, and any governments will be willing to take that risk, because nuclear meltdowns are serious. So yeah, this what we see from this, there's actually an alternative source of fuel that can be created when gasoline eventually runs out. So yeah, there is a possibility to run this thing, run cars and machines. So I think it's more of a step in that future, more than just saving the planet. It's kind of like what we're gonna do when oil runs out. We need alternatives. Everything runs on oil, so I feel like this would be useful in that case. And who knows, maybe Porsche finds some way to make this a more efficient process and you actually get e-fuel in the future. And I really like the fact that a company like Porsche is trying this, and maybe other manufacturers start trying this and some new innovations come out and they actually pull this off. That would be huge. So let's wait and see about that.